Australia and New Zealand. And the left-hand chart is like the 5% of the time how the building is operating, and the right-hand chart is how the building is operating at 95% of the time. So you would see this is the variability component what we are talking about. There's a huge randomness, and this is where the day-to-day energy, the minute-to-minute energy is getting consumed inside the building. So if we understand this as a problem, I think the objective is very simple. It's complex in terms of technology, but easy to understand in terms of the concept, wherein we want to reduce the energy consumption, have very good lights consuming 100 watts to 10 watts, as Bhaskar said, the reduction is by 80%. But at the same time, for systems like air conditioning systems and all, we need to reduce the variability part. Typically, this is an actual measurement chart of a before state, a highly variable system, to a system which is consuming much lower, and a system which is very tight, very predictable, and consuming much lesser energy, less chaotic in nature, which requires us to really, identify the reasons below the surface of the water. And we find a lot of it. I'll not go into details of that. There are more than 100, 150 reasons which lead to that variability equation, the consumption equation. Ultimately, this is the percentage which Bhaskar talked about. We see an opportunity sometimes in excess of 40 to 50%. In fact, I'll be sharing 2 case studies here, right here in India. We have hundreds of them across Asia. So the solution to energy optimization actually comes in first to really have the visualization, to really know what is happening, to have the right benchmarks that where we are and where we can be, to do the right diagnostics just like a doctor would diagnose a patient. So this is also a disease of sorts. And to use the right strategies and the technologies and the people behavior to carry out the optimization piece. This is how a benchmarking exercise goes, where we define the current state and then we decide what is the new state and what kind of an investment would be required in that. Data analytics, real-time understanding of the problem is becoming the order of the day. So this is very important because we really want to know if anything is going wrong, it should be captured and corrected there and then itself. For a hotel, the space diagnostics, which is what this industry is all about, to really deliver comfort to the guest. So our diagnostics of the space is the starting point where we really need to know what is happening inside the space from an energy perspective, from a comfort perspective. So the green, yellows, and reds, what you see, these are thermographic images of exactly how the space or a floor plate is looking inside a building. To take out strategies which are improving the thermal comfort, because again, as I said, we want lower energy, but we don't want to compromise on the thermal comfort of the guest. And indoor air quality also, I'm sure each one of us agrees with it. It's the order of the day. It's going to become even more and more important, where people really want a safe environment where they are going to stay. Ultimately, we also recommend the experts to do remote monitoring, something like an energy command center, which is also becoming a reality in the country, where big corporates are actually creating energy command centers. We have heard of command centers for various other things like surveillance and all, but now people are actually getting into the concept of energy surveillance. There are enough cases within the country and outside the country where the corporates, the enterprises are creating those centralized command centers, monitoring the energy on a real-time basis, really finding out what are the gaps and what are the areas of improvement. This all requires, to achieve this, a very integrated design process and a solution. So the message we want to send across is that it moves quite a shade beyond a product level intervention to a system level intervention to an approach and a thought process behind the entire thing. 2 case studies I wanted to share here. I think the good part of the story is the consciousness around energy is pretty much there in the country. And what we see, one of the case studies wherein numbers in excess of 500,000 kilowatt hours. In fact, this data was collected till December. The latest data till the last month is about 1.2 million kilowatt hours, which have been saved into a hotel property in Delhi. Similarly, a hotel property in Mumbai, which went through a 3-year exercise, which was an exercise around operational improvements, which gave about 500,000 kilowatt hours of saving, and exercise which was capex based, where money was invested, which is like right now on the path of giving near about 2.2 million kilowatt hours. So I think from in terms of business, when we talk about costs, you multiply it by the energy rate of 10 rupees, 12 rupees, 14, or even 8 rupees in some of the places where you are using the advantage of PPAs. What we really find, I think the numbers are pretty significant. So this is one exercise where the engineering team of a hotel actually starts becoming a revenue team for the hotel, especially for an existing hotel which has defined costs which are ever increasing year over year, but we find that this department starts delivering. Think about it, and this is a question which I put across to the hotel GMs. How many rooms have to be sold that the profitability of those rooms comes to equivalent of 2.7 billion kilowatt hours multiplied by, let's say, 10 rupees? I think the equation becomes very clear. So that's about it, and thank you for a patient hearing. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much. So please, I would like to invite Mr. Prem Tiwari on stage to present mementos to all the dignitaries. Mr. Prem Tiwari. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now it's time for the last session of the day, that is status of FSSAI and its implementation. And for this, the moderator of the day is Mr. Pradeep Shetty. He is the director of Maharaja Hotels and Restaurants in Mumbai. He also operates an outdoor catering unit under the same brand. He is the chairman of the legal committee on HRAWI and FHRAI. He has been instrumental in getting relief for the entire hotel and rest industry. Some of his successes are getting domestic tariff for cable, IPRS, PPL copyright charges, service relief, and court. He spearheads the FHRAI dialogue with the government on FSSAI matters. Now I would like to invite the first panelist, Mr. Dr. V. Pasupathy. So, he holds several doctorates in the biology discipline and has been awarded as the most versatile student in 1990. He holds 2 Guinness World Records and is a patron of 2 orphanages and runs 57 schools for the underprivileged children. He is the founder for Parikshan Charitable Trust and is presently the honorary CEO of Nalla Ki Rai Organic Farmers Movement. He established a food safety lab in 1998 in Chennai and started the HRAWI lab in Vadodara in 2015. He is on the advisory council for FHRAI for all FSSAI matters. He is also the author of the Food Safety Handbook launched yesterday. The last panelist of this session is Mr. Hemant Oberoi. He is the corporate chef and grand executive chef of Taj Palace and tours with a vast experience totaling 41 years. His area of specialty is contemporary designer, Indian and Western cuisine. Under his leadership, some of his famous projects are opening Souk and Wasabi at Taj Mumbai. He has catered to several world celebrities such as George Bush, Margaret Thatcher, Prince Charles, John Major, Zubeen Mehta, Rolling Stones, Cindy Crawford, and the list can go on. He does not need any further introduction. His accolades speak for his authority in the gourmet industry. Now I would request Mr. Pradeep Shetty to please start the session.
Good evening, gentlemen, my colleagues from the industry. Welcome, Chef Oberoi and Dr. Pasupathy. Really pleased to have you with us. Before we start off, I'll just give a brief on what FHR has done with FSSAI, so everybody gets into the perspective of things that we're going to discuss over here. FHRAI was introduced in the year 2012, and and it's been extended in terms of implementation from that time, and it's going to be 100% implemented this year. And we've had Dr. Pasupathy as advisor to us, brought in and introduced by our most respectable TNAT. So we thank him for having introduced Dr. Pasupathy. He, in the year 2012, he compiled for FHRAI a 800-page document of suggestion to the government on the new law. Because this particular law was mechanically imported from the West, and it was being imposed on Indian conditions. And it was this 800-page document which enabled us, FHRAI, to show to the government that there was a vast gap between the theoretical standards that were being prescribed and the true ground realities over here. And due to which a lot of changes have happened. The most significant one of that is that today raw material liability is not on us. If you are able to produce bills, then there is no prosecution or action for the raw materials being substandard. And of course, now Dr. Pasupathy has been inducted into the technical team, which is reviewing standards on behalf of FHRAI. So from this background onwards, I'll put the first question to you, Dr. Pasupathy, as to can you just brief our audience what is the present status and implementation of this FSSAI? Because I think this is really crucial, because this is going to be the year when it is going to be implemented with full force.
Thank you. Good evening to all my colleagues here. There are a few important things that I would like to declare here. Right now, 10 initiatives have been taken by FSSAI. We have been getting extensions right from 2011, May 11th, when the Gazette notification came. We have been getting extension. First, we were getting extension for 12 months on a periodical basis. Then on the last 3 occasions, we have got extension for 6 months. In the latest occasion, we have got extension only for 3 months. Now the government is very clear that no more extension will be given. Most probably our last date will be December 4th. So after December 4th, the law will be implemented. I do not know how, but the government is of the opinion that extension may not be granted to any industry. At the same point of time, government is overwhelmingly now inviting all of us to give suggestions, and FHRAI is very highly respected. It is recognized by the Food Safety Standards Authority of India as the apex organization for the hospitality industry, and that's a very good news for all of us, and the credit goes to the FHRAI leadership. Because of our repeated representation and the quality of our representation, the way we have put things forward and the initiatives we have taken, we have been able to impress Government of India that we mean business and we are not here to cheat the customer or deal with adulterated products, and we value the food safety of our guests. So government has taken us very, very sincerely, to the extent that I have been asked, rather on behalf of FHRAI, we have been asked to recommend redrafting of the Schedule 4 for the hospitality industry, which has been successfully done. The next responsibility that we have been given is a great responsibility. There's a compulsory training which is part of Schedule 4 requirements. Please understand this. First, the law, Gazette law, is in the Schedule 4 that there should be a master's in microbiology or a biochemistry, or any science graduate has to be appointed in the kitchen at all points of time to get FSSAI license. But from that position, it has now been reduced to a qualified, trained person on behalf of the hotel to be appointed. Now that training also, the curriculum is supposed to be designed by us, and the responsibility is given to me on behalf of the FSSAI for FHRAI. So for the entire hospitality industry, FHRAI takes the credit of designing the curriculum. That's a great news for all of you. So we are going to become the training partner for FSSAI, and I wish the people who are in this hall assembled will stand with the FHRAI leadership in ensuring that the training qualification also becomes a reality, so that things will be under our command. These are the two great improvements. The other things I will answer as the questions come to me. But these are the latest developments.
So, Doctor, let us get straight to business. Let us talk about these sudden inspections that are happening across the country. You find one FDA officer walking in at any point of time. There is inspection, there is notice, there is improvement notice, and there's a lot of fear that is set in, and of course, it's going to be greater fear in the times to come. So you want Chef to take that first, or you'll?
I will answer Pradeep Shetty first, and then Chef can ask his questions, because on my right-hand side, I have got a promoter, a sort of a committee member of FHRAI, and on my left, I have got a person who's a great celebrity chef, and his practical experience, he will tell us the truth of facing all these inspectors. Let me try to answer both of them in equal measure. Now, I would request all members present here to understand, an inspection notice is just a notice. It is not a legal notice. It is not something which can immediately transfer into punishment. You don't treat this as a notice of punishment, because that is the kind of frantic call that I get. I do get letters and I do get phone calls at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night from across the country for a simple inspection. An inspection report is an inspection under section 32 of FSSAI, for which minimum 30 days time is given, and if you ask for a reasonable time, any amount of time is given. You have to just answer to that inspection report. And to make it extremely simpler, in the book that we have released yesterday, we have just put certain things, yes or no, if you check through your management system, or if you ask the executives present in your hotel to just do that cross checklist verification, the inspection report is done. So you don't have to be afraid. If some inspector comes and says something extra, more than what is required, don't treat it as urgent, because it is a figment of their imagination. There are people who come and give very bizarre inspection reports. Just treat them like dust. They have no consequence, and please mark my words, they have no consequence. Whatever I have mentioned in the FHRAI book is the only inspection report that the government can give. Anything else, treat it as a figment of their imagination. Don't treat it seriously. Yes, Chef.
So Chef, you will be already thinking, what am I going to be cooking or creating reports and a reply on paper?
There's a different reality, actually. On the ground, realities are different than what you are saying. It is like we presume so many things on paper, but reality is different. The cooks are working for the lunch. Suddenly there's a frantic call. Some people have walked in. And here the panic starts. They start taking samples. Chili paste, this paste, mayonnaise, this, everything. And they are doing so many ingredients are there, because they're still mixing, still cooking, still going ahead for the cooking. And they start taking samples. They don't ask questions. They start taking samples. One wonders what is happening. I think the inspections, if you want to do, either it should be done during the mise en place times, not during the busy period, so that the guests don't suffer. Half the people are paying the attention to the people who have come in. Then you must understand the cooks is a very different category. How many hotels do have the educated chefs in our country? What is the percentage?
What would a Taj have on an average percentage-wise, and a qualified chef in terms of?
We have about 30% qualified chefs. We have in Taj Mumbai by itself, we have 275 people, and I have about 60 people from the catering college backgrounds. But how many hotels do have that kind of how many restaurants will have that kind of a percentage? You might have one head chef who's college background or catering background, rest of them are cooks. They understand the cooking well. They don't understand the aspects of FSSAI. Like half the hotels don't understand, what will the cooks understand? So it has to be, the inspections have to be carried out in it. First is the training program, implementation being done, And I think sometimes FSSAI also is being unreasonable. Cut, copy, paste doesn't work in our country. Our hygienic conditions are different. Our living conditions are different. People's behaviors are different. And then the chef's head is always in the neck, is always in trouble because he signed the form. So he'll be prosecuted, he'll be taken to task. These are the questions which keep on playing. And then there's so much of paperwork. The chef is supposed to cook and not do so much of paperwork. Then we should get some aboyers, some paperwork people, and some IT fellows who will do all this work. And sometimes let the chef cook also. That's my view.
Thank you, Chef,
reality.
for a very, very enlightening thought. I'm happy to hear this from a generation of chefs who actually cook. Now I have got laptop chef friends, a lot of them. Anyway, apart from jokes.
You know, there are two kinds of chefs. I always said there are TV chefs and there are chefs on TV.
So, the chef has asked very, very relevant questions. The truth of the matter is that we should not get confused between Food Safety Standards Act, Food Safety Standards Authority, which is the law, which is the ultimate authority, and the enforcement. Unfortunately, enforcement is with the state. And every state government in India has a different perception of this FSSAI Act. So I would request, if it is possible for the FHRI leadership, we have been insisting through various representation. The entire top brass of FHRI is sitting in this hall. I would request through the office of Mr. Pradeep Shetty to probably pass a resolution that the enforcement must be uniform in this country and no other law must be cited by any inspection authority when it comes to food. So you mean because that's a fundamental resolution that we have to pass.
So Doctor, let me explain. You're talking about the state laws which are still existing. The parallel, the law which was prior in existence, like there is a BMC 394 license still in operation in Bombay.
Yeah, I have had a mayor in a stage very recently in one of the southern cities in the country, where the mayor was on stage to tell me that I have got, law number 143 of my corporation, which supersedes every other law in the country regarding food, and I have got the right to check and to close down a particular unit. And I couldn't fight with him on stage because he was a guest, and I was also a guest. So, I would like the apex body of hospitality industry to pass a resolution to be presented to the FSSAI that FSSAI must publish an advertisement in all languages in the country that FSSAI is the only law related to food in this country, which is the truth. Because this is an act of parliament and this should be published. And that will put a full stop to all other anomalies in this country. So that's number one. Number two, what Chef is talking about is extremely realistic. I think the next thing that we have to do is that on behalf of the industry, we have to request that inspection be done at a particular time or on particular stages with particular, particular outlook. You can come at any point of time, but you must come for either pre-preparation zone or production zone or dining zone. You can't come to preparation zone and comment about a pre-prepared product or a semi-prepared product. Because I do understand where Chef is coming from. There are samples being picked up or there are comments being written on chili paste. They have written a comment called chili paste, but that chili paste was not chili paste. That was a soya chili paste kept for marinating fish. Fortunately or unfortunately, the sample was also picked for chili paste and I gave a report for chili paste. And due to my technical intervention, I could tell the government that this is not chili paste, this is soya chili paste, and government was red-faced, they had to retreat their report. But then how many times somebody is going to reach me? So what Chef is talking is extremely realistic, that we should represent to the government that the inspection time be very, very clear. But third thing, I think I will deal it in later, in the later part of this particular discussion. With due respect to all of you present here, when the same chef or cook or waiter goes from India and works in an Indian chain restaurant in Dubai or Singapore or California, he follows all rules of that country. Some way, when it comes to Mother India, he takes brand India for granted. I think if you have got the mindset to understand the local law and abide by it, you better abide by it. But then, the realities are true. The civic amenities in the countries that I quoted are extremely good. Our focus must be in two directions. One is, let us put our house in order to the extent it is possible, because our house is already in order. Let us just document it. Let us just make it very clear to the government that we respect the guest more than what the law demands. And that is the actual truth. We are one step above in pampering our guest and respecting our guest than whatever the law is demanding, even as on date. The other thing is, let us also communicate to the government what are the gaps in the law, and that will be rightly communicated. Yes.
So Chef, just taking it further from here.
Sorry, can I just interrupt on Mother India? I must interrupt. I hope in Mother India you are looking at the sources from where the ingredients are coming.
Sure.
Because the farmers,
the chef is very, he was also talking to me on this, and I respect the chef's opinion a lot. His experience is invaluable. Now, let me please tell all of you here in this hall, be very happy if you have a bill from where you have brought the raw material. You don't become the prime accused in any charge sheet, even if there is a food poisoning case. Please understand, if you have got Form E and COA, Certificate of Analysis from the supplier, not from your side. There is something called Form E, which is free downloadable from www.fssai.gov.in. Form E is a fundamental right of every buyer to be asked from the supplier, and supplier who supplies you anything must give this Form E. It is a very simple form. There is nothing that he is going to give there. He is going to just sign and say, I take guarantee for my products. I think if you do that, you are through. You don't become the prime accused. So please understand, your raw materials will not, no case will be filed on the hoteliers if you have a bill and a Form E. If you have a bill, it's more than enough. There is one citation of a magistrate in Erode in Tamil Nadu, where repeatedly the magistrate requested the hotelier to produce a bill for a particular item, but the hotelier couldn't produce a bill. The magistrate has written in the judgment that in spite of my repeated request even to produce a paper bill from the hotelier couldn't give me a bill. I know that he is not the accused, but law tells me that I have to punish him, so I am punishing him with great regret.
So, Doctor, should we therefore clarify that that particular vendor from where you procure the raw material has to be registered with the FSSAI? So, it can't be an unregistered vendor. Am I correct? I mean, that's what
No. That is not our botheration. It is assumed that our approved vendor system and our normal vendor specification goes with an idea that we are not going to buy from non-FSSAI licensed people or non-FSSAI registered vendors. If you are doing so, you are buying an unlicensed revolver. And any further inquiry on that is going to be disastrous to you. So let us not buy unlicensed revolvers and come and ask for any solution from anybody. I think...
So
why vendors should be given a license to sell only?
Yeah. So
why don't
there
you
be
control
regulation
that
at that
no,
point?
there are two things. In the given 30 minutes, let us discuss where, how to save ourselves. It is too difficult to set everything right in the country. So I would like to devote this 30 minutes on that. Yeah.
Doctor, I want to interrupt. I'm going to give you a point of view as a hotelier. I am completely convinced about chef's position. Let me tell you this chronology of events. 4 cooks, 5 cooks are cooking in a kitchen. 3 guys come brandishing badges or uniforms. The gut reaction in this country is you see uniform or badge, your pants fall off. This guy is going to go chasing behind the uniformed personnel, whoever they might be, FSSAI, 394, whatever it might be. They are not going to quote your book or your paper. My bigger concern, as I completely agree with Chef, it's bad enough we have a license Raj. We cannot have a raid Raj as approved by my industry. They cannot come when they want. Case in point, you're flying a plane, you're a pilot. I'm also in the aviation business for those who know. You cannot go into the cockpit when the plane is being flown by the pilot and say, you know what, I'm going to audit you now. Unacceptable, unethical. Now, allow me to finish, Doctor. I'm on your side. You are part of our team. There is something fundamentally wrong. You do not disturb a teacher in the middle of a classroom and say, I want to see how you're teaching your student. There is a time for this. You may take samples, park the samples, unless there is a reason to believe specifically that a person is subverting the system. That's when you raid. A raid cannot be a common cause of going to an establishment to check what they're doing. We have to take a position as an industry. You have the right to do sample checks. We are going to do sample checks as an industry and give them information. Unless they believe that we have subverted, we have made a mistake, there should be no reason to raid A. B, many years ago, when I was working with the Maharashtra government, they said, what is the biggest problem when tourists come to India? I said, sir, the policeman is checking my passport. He's sitting in a police uniform. If you've noticed, all immigration officers, even if they're from the police deputation, they wear a blue uniform and they are given a sense of being positive energy towards the tourist. And this is critical because you're dealing, as Chef correctly mentioned, with a whole bunch of uneducated chefs, cooks, who the moment they see authority, their first reaction is going to be breakdown. You have to have the officers who will come there, and this must be part of our FHRI
So therefore, we designate some visiting hours, or maybe why not with prior appointment? Let there be a prior intimation.
No, I'm also saying training for the people who are auditing us, how to deal with them as human beings. You scare them, you will get the worst reaction.
Okay, let him answer, Doctor. Yeah.
Now, this is a very valid point. That is why I want you to read the handbook carefully and also, go through the food safety link, which will be up very shortly. Hotelier has got every right to demand for a discussion on what the inspector is going to observe. And after the observation also, he has got a right by law to express his opinion on the inspection report. It is not that the inspection report can go without your notice. So we have got an absolute right. If he violates that under section 28, there is a fine for that food safety officer to the extent of 2 lakh rupees. Unfortunately, we are so back-footed that we don't even discuss these things. I will be very happy if all of you start discussing with the food safety officer on the powers vested on him and the responsibilities vested on that person. We think that power is one-sided. There's a huge amount of responsibility on the officer which he has to demonstrate, for which we should know that such responsibilities exist with him. That is why I'm requesting all of you to become bit aware of the situation. Your awareness for every 10% can bring down problems by 60-70%. My request is that. So FHRAI has made an extraordinary attempt in sponsoring a book to make you aware. Please make use of that, and I assure you, you will be 100% through with every situation. That much I can tell you. But this has to be represented to government in very subtle form. It has been represented, and the thing is, what the FSSAI is telling us, make state committees to represent to state food safety commissioners. So that is the next step. I have requested for state advisory committee, which will have one representative of FHRAI or the associate regional organizations for every state food safety commissioner to conduct a meeting once in 30 to 45 days. So once this happens, all these enforcement anomalies will be wiped out. 99.9% it will happen very shortly.
So Chef, bringing this back to perspective of what the original question was, is the inspections and these notices which will be issued. Now, these are not notices which will lead to prosecution, but these are notices which are intended towards improvement. So the general viewpoint of the enforcement agency is that I'm giving you a chance to improve. So how do you think, in practical purposes, this can be implemented in a kitchen? See, we have a restaurateur, we have a small hotel, we have a big hotel. I don't see a problem with big hotels. Maybe you have enough manpower in the kitchen. But even in those places and in places down below, how do you think we can deal with these notices in terms of, do you deploy a separate person, or how do you practically deal with, now that it is a reality and now there is no running away from it?
The reality is, if you're caught by a policeman, what is your first reaction? It's crime. That's the first reaction. The moment the notice comes, and here the cops only are coming. FSSAI inspection is like the cops coming in, and the cooks and the chefs are very scared.
Chef, I'm talking about in terms of preparedness.
You see, either it has the training sessions have to be down the line. Come on, you have to do your job hygienic way. This is the FSSAI law. But by the time you teach the laws, it has to start from the root level. Every 2 years, your staff is changing. Today,
the attrition issue.
Attrition is a big issue today. It is not like the olden days. We stuck to the same company for 41 years. People are not sticking to the partners for 2 years now. So what leave aside the company? so how do you take that forward? My question was, why we are letting the vendors get away with a lot of things? When the hotels are being caught, chefs are being sort of prosecuted, or the company is being prosecuted in a way. Why we are not strict with the vendors?
That's what I told you. The vendors are no more let free. The truth of the matter is...
Sorry, let me come. Why don't we have a law that you will produce the gluten content not less than this much percentage? I get my flour, which is sometimes 7% gluten, 8%, 9%. The whole baker's idea is keep on checking the gluten content, keep on adding extra 1%, 2% gluten in the flour. Then he checks, okay, margarine is gone, trans fats are gone, moisture content in the butters. Bakery is a science.
Let me clarify, so for the benefit of everybody here, government has designed standards which are bare minimum. Government design standards which are best. So hotel industry, and particularly the upper crust hotel industry, is focusing on higher standards and better standards. The government legal standards are in the bare minimum that are good for the nation. There are a lot of discrepancies in that. There are a lot of gaps in that. That is what I have pointed out, because it is incomplete. But just because the standards are incomplete, it doesn't mean that the country will wait for food safety till the standards are completed. Let us look at it in 3 directions. Number one, I think all of us agree that none of us intentionally want to be in adulterated food. Are we for that, or yes or no? Are we against adulterated food? I hope the answer is yes. There are 2 more issues then. One is substandard food, the third is unsafe food. Now, substandard food is what Chef is talking about. There are huge gaps in the law, and to correct that, we have given representations. There are many small scientist panel which are created. 4 or 5 standards have come out. Hundreds of standards have to come out, and that the work is going on. But safety, like washing your hands, sanitizing your work contact surfaces, having a medical checkup done once in a year for all food handlers, proper uniforms, the bare minimum, the hot food to be hot, cold food to be cold. I think these are certain promises which we have to keep. That is where we are right now. So we are telling the government, we will keep, since it is a self-declaration act, we will keep these 10 or 12 promises. You correct yourself. In the meantime, we will cooperate with you. And till that time, don't come and ask questions to us on raw materials. Don't bother us on these frivolous inspection reports. Give us time. We are a very responsible organization. We are an extremely responsible community. So we will do our duty and wait for that time. Is it the right approach or a
correct.
wrong approach?
Appreciate. Yeah, so that is the approach that we have been taking. So the next issue is that of samples. Now, a lot of our members here are not aware what is this issue regarding samples and the testing of those samples. What kind of food samples are going to be lifted? Are they going to be mise en place? They're going to be raw materials? They're going to be semi-cooked food or cooked food? And what kind of tests? What is the compliance requirement in terms of law? And what is the consequence of the test results? So could you please throw light on that?
Now, any sample that is taken from anywhere has to be divided into 4 parts. Now, please listen to this carefully. The 4th part is our right. The 4th part of the sample that the officer picks up, every FHRI member, every hotelier in this country has got a right to give it to a lab of his or her choice. Unfortunately, whenever the samples are taken, our members are not using the 4th sample opportunity. It's your fundamental right, please use it. FHRI has got its own labs. It has got its lab in Chennai, it has got its lab in Vadodara, it is creating labs in other parts of the country. So please use your lab and be sure that your sample is right. And get the result at the fastest time, because our lab can give you result in 3 to 7 days time. Whereas the government lab, for you to get the information, it will take 14 days. Sometimes it takes 2 years. Okay? So you will get first-hand correct report. And if you don't exercise your fundamental right, then you lose that opportunity. Once you don't have the sample with you, you can't claim anything. Because once your sample result and the government sample result are contradicting, it is for the government to prove that their sample is right. So they have to go to the referral laboratory. And referral laboratory in this country has got a history of giving results minimum 2 years time. Sometimes it is 11 years, 9 years. By the time you may or may not have the hotel. So, you have to be very clear on how to exercise, your right.
Chef,
so don't miss the opportunity.
So how often is this going to happen, and what types of samples are going to be lifted? Is there a
fine,
law?
It's totally fine if it is 11 years,
it's
then most of the people are jogging.
Now,
this is
Chef,
funny.
Chef asked me many important questions. I want Chef to ask more questions on sampling. Because,
no. Let me ask you a lot of questions I have got for sampling and the temperatures. Your law states all the chilled food to be served at 5 degrees, 6 degrees. What do we do in a banquet when the function is at 8 o'clock, guy comes, takes the salads and the cold food at 7 o'clock, and the function goes on till 1 o'clock in the night. 6 hours, the food is lying there at 22 degrees temperature or 23 degrees of the ambient temperature of the room. That's mother-in-law and father-in-law doesn't come into that. And what is the law into that?
The law says that the food on display should not exceed 2.5 hours if it is not temperature controlled. This is the law.
It is not practical, doctor. It is not practical.
How do you handle a
Now,
banquet?
having said that, now how the law says that is presuming that it is pre-processed. Now, how do we pre-process? Do we have controls in it? That is why I am telling the government, and we are telling the government, if it is validated by us, the government must accept it. So, it is true scientifically that after 2 hours, there is the microbial load of the cut fruits, the cut vegetables and the chutney is increasing. So, there is nothing scientifically wrong with the law. If there is something wrong with our practice, then we should try to change it at some point of time. Just because a wrong practice has been very lucky for us, it doesn't mean that we will be lucky forever. We have built dams without strength. We have constructed roads without plan. We have been having 6,000 unmanned railway stations. It doesn't mean that you will get away with railway crossing accidents and dams collapsing in this country.
Okay,
so there is a time we have to reform ourselves. The truth of the matter is, there is to be a via media. If you can't have a cold storage in every mobile, outdoor catering venue, there should be some system of keeping cold food cold or trying to make an arrangement whereby the microbial load doesn't increase beyond a particular limit.
But doctor, how do you maintain a 5-degree temperature in a banquet? I mean, that's practically, what is the solution? How do you meet that requirement?
You see, you talk about the overseas, what happens. Most of the places overseas, they have sit-down dinners. Most of the Western countries, most of the thing, banquet, 2.5 hours banquet. It's only for 2 hours banquet. They don't give it like us, that the barat will come, reception people will come, Dulha Dulan will have the food at 1:30, Muhurat will be there. There's nothing like in that country. Yeah, so it is, here we talk about yogurt, milk products. What happens when somebody has asked for a yogurt at 3.5% fat? Your inspector will come and he will say, oh, it's a low-fat milk. How can you do this? Negative marking starts. Mayonnaise, freshly made mayonnaise, kept at a good temperature, still it doesn't last because our hens also don't give such good eggs. So
Chef
our eggs are not
Chef is very
pasteurized.
right. This is an important point which we are raising with the government. Now, what happens is many times, what happens with the sampling, this is where I want all of you to be very clear and be very correct when you sign when samples are taken. For example, in a hotel, somebody has taken a pepper powder, soup pepper powder, dressing powder for sampling. Now that's a dressing powder because pepper powder bought in hotel is 150 rupees a kilo. White pepper itself is 900 rupees a kilo. You can't get pepper powder for 150 rupees. Obviously, that is 10% pepper and 90% other edible flour because it's a soup dressing powder. Now, we have to write in the sample when the person takes the sample that it is soup dressing powder. If you sign pepper powder on the sample, then you are signing a death warrant. So that is where I want all of you to be careful in what you write when the sample is taken. For example, somewhere else, salad oil was taken. The person who took the sample wrote it as blended oil. Blended oil definition by law is the minimum percentage of one oil has to be 20%. Whereas your salad oil is 3.4%, 3.5% of groundnut oil and rest is some other oil. If you put 20% groundnut oil, neither it is economically feasible nor it is taste-wise good. So when you sign on the sample document, which is produced by government, you can also write on protest. You have got complete right by law to write this. And please give the fourth sample to our lab, to the FHRAI.
Why don't you control the pepper fellow who's mixing up the thing?
If you write properly, this is pepper, the government will go to him. If you write properly, that I have bought it with the intention, thinking that it is, soup dressing powder. If you have bought it as pepper powder and retained it in a store as pepper powder, I think the government is not in fault. Because if you have bought a time bomb thinking that it is Apache bike and go and smash in a building, I think people will arrest you for possessing a bomb, not a motorbike. So you must be very careful on what you possess. I think that bare minimum responsibility we have on our shoulders.
So I'll allow questions a little later. Let us run through this session and there'll be enough time for questions. But doctor, you still not answered the question. The question here is, how many samples a year or a month? And samples from what category of food are going to, is there a standard, is there a law regarding it?
There is no law.
Yeah. We can kill hundreds. Yeah. So we have to remember that.
SK.
One last question, please, because it's too late. I have to be in the airport by 7. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Our restaurant was inspected by the FSSAI staff, and they took a sample of chicken lollipop, and they were asked, hello? Yeah. So they took a sample of chicken lollipop, and they said, either you give us 1 lakh rupees or we make a report. Okay. So we said, go ahead, because we are not using any coloring elements or any ingredients which are not approved ingredients. So anyway, they took the sample, and after some time, they sent a report that the coloring was there. But we simultaneously had sent a second sample to Equinox lab of the chicken lollipop as well as all the ingredients, and found nothing wrong with the ingredients as well as the finished product. They have filed a case against us, and so now tell us, how do we deal with this? Because internally I found out that the report was manipulated by them to extort money.
Now that's what I'm telling, to cut it short. When the sample is taken, you have a right to demand to be divided into 4, and that's the law. The fourth part, the FSO has to ask you, sir, do you have a lab of our choice? If you say, I have got X lab of my choice, then he will ask only one question. Is it your own lab? Is it FSSAI notified? Or is it NABL certified? If you say, yes, I have an NABL certified lab done by my own federation, then the officer has to allow you to send the sample there. Okay, the officer has got only one choice. He can say that the distance of this particular lab is so far, I will recommend you, or you can choose from the list of NABL accredited labs from the website of Government of India, any lab of your choice. I will have to accompany you and give that sample there. The only thing is the fourth part of that sample, the cost must be borne by you. Okay? So this is the self-defense available. If you lose that opportunity, then you are treading in dangerous waters. Thank you so much.
Pasupathy, Dr. Pashu, one last question. See, you have just mentioned that we have got labs in Vadodara and some more places. I think they have all been set under your guidance. I believe so. How many food testings have happened in these labs? Roughly, if you don't have the exact figure, no problem. You can give us a rough figure.
In Chennai, on a daily basis, around 100 to 110 samples happen. Roughly about 2,200 samples happen. In Vadodara, the number of samples I do not know. It is very less. It is somewhere around 5 or 6 samples or something to that range. But very recently, the Vadodara lab is supported by the Bombay food business operators also. From a couple of months, the number of samples in Vadodara lab has increased. I do not know the exact number. If I'm not wrong, it should be around 20 samples a day.
So Mr. Podar, to answer your question,
a minimum of 30 samples a day will make the lab break even. But I know that the hoteliers are giving samples here and there, but I request all of you to give the samples to an FHRAI lab.
The sample numbers are very low because it's not being implemented. So therefore, there is now the implementation will happen.
The question is that we want to set up a lab in Calcutta.
Yeah, definitely.
What is the cost, rough cost?
Sir, we have to talk about this after this. So one last question to Chef, because this is something people ask, and even it was a pleasure having you. But one of the questions, I believe you've quit Taj now and you're on your own. And since this, it's not to embarrass you, but still it's a tricky question. We just make it one last fun question. This is brand India, and I believe you're moving out of India. So I'm really worried on behalf of the industry, are we losing Chef Oberoi? So why is it that you're moving out of the country?
No, it is, I am taking brand India overseas in its own original avatar. What I am trying to produce in Singapore or San Diego is brand India, because I realize that after visiting so many countries, you see the condition of food in
Indian food.
Indian food in overseas. It is pathetic. It is just pathetic.
Correct.
80% of the restaurants under the banner of Indian food, they serve Bangladeshi, Indian, Pakistani, all food. Where is the Balti cuisine from India? Nowhere. Baltimore does not come into India only. So where is the question of, I am taking Indian food. I have done a lot of R&D work in the last about 20 years. That is the food, the forgotten foods. In its new avatar, I am taking overseas. I'm not leaving India. My roots are here.
Sir, don't leave us. Stay here. So
no, it is going to be
you're
here.
You're keeping the flag of brand India.
It will be.
High.
It will be brand India. I want to take it in its own form. I'm not going to serve.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello. Yep. Well, I would like to invite Mr. Shetty to present the mementos to all the dignitaries present on the dais. Mr. Shetty Bhatia. Thank you so much. Thank you so